Behold, RPGs and Baby Makes 3.
RPGs and Baby Makes 3, Reimagined.
RPGs and Baby Makes 3, Reimagined.
Reimagined.
Episode 11 of the Reimagined variety, and this is a really special episode because gonna be playing some clips from an interview I did with GremlinLegions, the creator of a really great RPG called Junior Brave's Survival Guide to the Apocalypse, based on a series of graphic novels called Junior Braves of the Apocalypse. And there's a lot more to that story, but we'll talk about that, I think.
I'm a little disappointed
Why?
that you weren't going to say, and it's a very special episode, or what did you say exactly?
On a very
special episode of RPGs and Baby Makes 3.
Baxter Burney.
Reimagined, Kathleen Turner is a guest. I feel like that's how I sound right now.
You do sound a little like
an old
smoker.
Yeah.
Before we go any further, though, this episode is connected to several other pieces of media, and I am asking you all
I thought
now.
for a second you were going to say pieces of meat.
This is like on a kebab. There are multiple pieces of meat, and this is yet but one of those pieces of meat of the kebab that I am creating. In all seriousness, I love this game, and
I love this game too.
Had the opportunity to turn it into a paid gig at the Savannah Morning News, where I write a Sunday column, and I have written, or am writing, by the time you're hearing this, I have written a column about this game and the graphic novels and the creators of the graphic novels, who were very generous with their time, and that being Greg Smith and Michael Tanner, the writers, and the illustrator Zach Lehner, who is a Savannah College of Art and Design graduate, SCAD graduate here in Savannah. So that's how I was able to convince people to let me cover this. So we have this, we have...
You just sounded like the It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia guy in front of the board, like connecting everything. Just a full circle what you were joking about earlier this morning.
Yeah, so Charlie Day standing in front of the board with all of the lines, but with pins
this is
in
all
them all
connected.
over.
Do you see it?
A beautiful mind kind of situation here. I mean, I am a genius. But if I could just get out right now all of the things that we have, because that is this episode with this interview, and then there's a live play, also here on the YouTube channel, and then this article that I've written.
Slowly fall into an awful allergy attack.
But a very good live play, I think. And then an article that I've written for the Savannah Morning News, which you can find in the comments here. And if you could please check out all of those things. This is really important to me. You don't normally say that, but this is something that's really important to me because I love these games. I love these graphic novels, and I'd really like for these guys to succeed because I think it's cool. So let's roll for initiative, shall we?
Yes.
So we did play Junior Brave's Survival Guide to the Apocalypse, the RPG. You and I had played this before.
Yeah, it was great.
We played the free RPG day version of it.
Loved it.
Which I absolutely loved as well. And that was all pre-mades, I believe, in a short scenario. Somebody on a Discord named Tamsa wrote it for us. It was pre-gens, right?
I don't think so.
Did we have the opportunity to choose our characters in a way?
I thought so.
Because I've never actually seen the...
I still have my character sheet somewhere.
I actually still have mine somewhere too. So, it's a lovely game. And actually, we talk about... we go through the character creation process in the live play that we have on the YouTube channel as well. But the character creation process was kind of fun. I actually really enjoyed going through that with you guys. What did you think of the character creation process? As somebody, I mean, because I know you had played it before.
Super easy.
Super easy.
I don't like crunch either, so, I start tuning things out and then start thinking, oh God, why did I join this game? I didn't have that feeling at all.
Yeah, and yet I wouldn't call it, like, super minimalist.
No.
I mean, there were still 6 stats. Each statistic has an associated polyhedral die, D4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 20.
I'm still frustrated you didn't let me have a collapsible shovel in my pocket, though.
I mean, it could have been like a garden hoe.
Who are you calling hoe?
We did work it out, though, nicely that you had a roll of black electrical tape, which really went with your goth character.
Yeah, it was like I played the, 14, 15-year-old Gretchen.
So this is what I kind of love. So you're playing, okay, so you have this character, you put out your stat array in the way that you choose, and then you choose a trope, and the tropes they're archetypes that you get to play that are taken from the characters from the graphic novels and sort of expanded upon a bit. And for each of those, you get like a special ability that you can kind of enact based on whatever trope you choose.
Yeah, I was a rebel, and I got like a +3 to my roll when I was trying to convince adults about something.
Yeah. If you spent a brave token.
Yeah, okay,
and brave tokens are this sort of like this mechanic that you get. You earn them yourselves, and you also have a pool, and it helps you kind of with your dice rolls and stuff. I actually really love tokens in RPG games. I've learned I loved it in the Supernatural game. That's another similarity this actually has to Cortex, because plot points in Supernatural. So you have the
Dude,
coins.
why didn't we pull out the tokens?
We could have just pulled out the tokens.
Yeah, it's so much easier for me to keep track of things.
Well, maybe we'll play it in real life next time. We could actually maybe potentially play in person, because the players that showed up were all locals. 4 people canceled day of. Just mention that as typical.
One was work related. Yeah,
They
I'd
all
love
had
to
their reasons.
hang out with everybody there. Yeah.
Pete and Taffy were our other players. But the point is you have this, like, I think the stats are fairly complicated. I mean, there's 6 that are fairly beefy, meaty. Let's get into the meat.
They are.
You get 6 different stats.
Yeah, but they're so intuitive.
I know, but it's not just like you have like brawn, brains, luck,
I don't know. Okay,
and that's it.
I compare everything to Pathfinder. So
well, of course it's not as complicated as Pathfinder.
Yes, exactly. So it's pretty easy.
But then you also have your skills, and which are through merit badges.
Yeah.
You have these badges, and you get to start with 3 merit badges. And actually, as you play along through the game, you can earn additional merit badges. Yeah. And merit badges give you bonuses to using skills related to those merit badges. And it's kind of cool. Like, you can, if it's obviously relatable, then you get +3. If you're stretching believability, you only get a +1 to your roll. I kind of like how that's funny, but it also encourages the players to be creative in how they use their abilities, which I think is neat. And then you mentioned the shovel in your pocket, but it's also the equipment thing is sort of interesting. You have your pockets and your pack. And everybody starts with a few items that like every scout would have.
Which just goes to show that it's supposed to be a dude's game. Because no women have real pockets.
True enough. I was actually thinking about that while we were playing. You definitely couldn't. I almost wished I would have said that. Like, there's no way you could fit a shovel in your pocket.
No.
But the pockets are for small items and the pack is for bigger items. But the thing that's interesting...
Can't even fit my phone in my girl pocket. It's ridiculous.
There's a mechanic built in where if you don't have a lot of marked items in your pack, when you need something, you can do essentially a skill check, a D10 skill check, to try to find something in your pack that you need, and you do a die roll like in the game. So I think that's kind of interesting. It leaves this sort of flexibility, like, the kind of idea like a scout always has what he or she might need.
Yeah,
You know,
I like
so I think
it.
that's neat. I think there's a lot of the mechanical stuff really fits for me. And obviously I know the game really well now because I've like been listening to interviews and live plays and reading the books and all of the stuff.
You're super amped right now.
I am.
I feel it.
Well,
feel your
I'm
excitement.
amped
I love it.
because, I mean, this is
You
so
have
fun.
gone beyond the exhausted parent plateau, and you were floating away with your enjoyment and
Feel
excitement.
like you're floating.
You guys feel like you're floating?
I'm so happy for you. I love it.
I thought it was fun to run.
And interesting fact, if you're watching the video, Rob turned on his diffuser, and whatever was in that diffuser sent me spiraling into an allergy attack, which
Yeah.
I am still like, this is why I have Kathleen Turner voice days later. And you can actually witness me breaking down in real time.
That's so crazy. I don't even know. You're just very sensitive. Because then we went to Indian food recently, and you're like, even that is irritating me. So
yeah,
maybe
they had
you're
a diffuser there too. So I guess I'm just gonna need a bubble. I'm gonna be
the boy in the
bubble
bubble.
mom.
Jake Gyllenhaal. Boy in the plastic bubble. He was the star of that when he was
Yeah,
a kid.
I know. I don't
Yeah.
have a witty retort there.
I mean, you don't really. It's kind of.
But see,
it's
when I
its
think
own
about
thing.
bubbles now and like the bubble ball, all I can see is that video where that person is in a bubble ball and they ram into him with a car and he goes flying into the trees.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. But let's move on from this. So this is the game we played this week. Kathleen Turner needs to rest her voice. We're going to have one more little segment here at the end. But why don't we play... So I did this interview with Michael Wight. Mike was really generous with his time, and I was a little bit of a fanboy. And he's GremlinLegions. That's one word. Capital G, capital L on most social media platforms. And he described it, his nom de plume. And he was a very nice guy, and I took some of the interview that we did and kind of made a little mini recording of the best pieces of it, which we're going to play here. And make sure you stay to the end, because it is such a lovely story what he tells about what he did with the residuals, the money that he got for making this game. He didn't exactly go and use it to enrich himself, but instead it enriched his community. So really cool.
Nice.
So anyway, listen to that, and we'll come back after that interview. When did you first get into role playing? Like, where is that origin for you?
That goes all the way back to maybe like late elementary school, early junior high school. I mean, just kind of had friends that were like, hey, let's play this thing that has knights and dragons and this other thing that has Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I was like, okay. And I just enjoyed storytelling from that, and the ability to kind of use my imagination to its fullest, and it just kind of went from there.
There is such a big difference, though, between, playing these games and being a game designer and kind of like getting into all of that. When did it start to change, though, for you, like playing these games like D&D and TMNT and Other Strangeness? I loved that game as well, actually, when I was a kid.
Yeah.
What was the thing that made you say, you know what, I kind of want to make my own games? I know you've also done a lot of hacks as well. When did you first start, like, messing around with games, and, like, when did that transition into, you know what, I'm actually going to, like, really put this down and see if other people are interested in this?
Actually, not much longer after I started playing. I had a friend in junior high school whose name was Ted Ladderis, and he designed, like, whole cloth, his own DuckTales role-playing game.
Oh, God, that's awesome.
And I was just, like, looking at this going, like, oh, my God, you can just make this yourself? And from then on, I was just bit by the bug. I mostly just would try to revise things or rewrite things a little bit, and then I would expand out a little bit more. Like at one point, I tried to rewrite the entirety of the Rift system.
It could actually use it, probably.
It could use some heavy revisions, but
Tweaking.
let's just say my attempts were not as good.
That's so cool. So, like, what was the first time you remember, like, publishing something maybe that somebody, like, actually paid you for?
Pretty much it was the Junior Braves. I mean, I had done some, like, small, like, hand printed, like, back when I was working at a print shop, I would print my own games, and then I'd take them to the local convention and, you know, sell a few there and earn maybe like $2 or $3, $5, something like that. But the Junior Braves was the first time I actually like earned proper money, such that it is for my game writing. I mean, it helped that, you know, it was essentially, again, you know, a hack of, you know, the rule system, and got a lot of support from both, you know, the original writers of Kids on Bikes and from my old game store boss, who was also the go-between with Oni Press and Renegade Games.
The way Greg tells it, the graphic novel was just coming out, and he was at a barbecue at your house. And he says that you were so gracious and sort of announced his game to, like, everybody. You got everybody's attention and, like, told everybody, not the game, the graphic novel. You told them about the graphic novel. And then that you basically held him hostage and made this game.
I don't even know if I remember that far back now. I just remember, like...
Does this ring any bells, first of all?
Yeah, I mean, it rings some bells. I mean, it's just, yeah, unfortunately for me, like, I remember more traumatic events than I do good events. But no, I mean, I remember, like, us talking about, like, oh, yeah, you know, if you ever get this graphic novel published, you know, sure, I'll make a game based on it. And we all kind of laughed. And then, you know, his graphic novel got published. And then I was like, I'll have to do something about that. I think at the time, originally I was using, there was a game called The Wildlings from John Harper that he had been tinkering with, and they eventually kind of like handed off to me at one point when he was going into like Blades in the Dark. And I was like, well, you know, this would work well for doing kind of a scout game, because you're playing kids who are out on an adventure and who are used to the wilderness, and that makes good sense to use for, say, scouts who are trying to survive in a, you know, apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was essentially like the same kind of system as Kids on Bikes, where it's a polyhedral based system, and it was like, you know, okay, this kind of works. We were kind of building off of that, and then when I was finally allowed the chance to actually turn this into a game, it was basically, we want to turn the Kids on Bike system into a licensed property for something else. And I was like, well, this is very much like this thing that I've been working on, so why don't I just switch it over to that? But yeah, essentially, like, from 2019 to 2020 was like the whole process of, hey, this is going to be happening. I'm like, okay, well, I'll work on this. But it was sort of a very rapid process in the grand scheme of things.
Okay, you said that this is sort of like your first paid gig, but, like, how did the gig even come to you? Why would they say, oh, well, this guy's he's made some hacks. We think he's going to make this book based on Kids on Bikes, probably one of the most exciting new RPGs out on the market, and it's going to be the first licensed project. How did that all work out?
Happy coincidences, really. So, again, so I used to work at a print shop, and I was a regular at the game store that I now work at. And so eventually they were like, you know, we understand that you hate your job at the print shop. Why don't you come work for us? We could use your graphic expertise, and we know you like role-playing games. We could use that. It also helped that, like, half the people there were my friends. So so I came to work there, and my boss, Steve Ellis, eventually became the go-between, again, with Oni Press, the comic book company, and Renegade Games, saying, well, okay, we'll turn Oni Press properties into games through Renegade.
Okay.
And so he did, like, Space Battle Lunchtime, the card game, Gretchen, the card game, the T-Dragon Society card game. But he was like, well, you know, they got this new property that they're working on, you know, with Kids on Bikes, and they kind of want to turn that into, some other versions based on comic books from Oni Press. And I'm like, well, hey, I A, play this game, B, also know the person who wrote this graphic novel. And my boss was like, oh, well, I guess, can you try it? And I'm like, sure, let me work out a initial rough draft. And then he's like, seemed to like it, and then it just went from there.
That's awesome. It really is a perfect fit. I mean, for the system, it's just a perfect fit. And it totally makes sense even within the sort of cultural reference points that Kids on Bikes is touching on. I mean, it really fits completely into that.
Yeah, the whole young people and weirdness.
Yes.
Kind of mixed
young, yeah. That's perfectly said. One of the things I love, of course, is that you took a ton of Zach's art and put it all over the book. I mean, like, that was great. It just feels like the graphic novels just from that. I mean, because it's literally using the same art. But I also think that what's great about it is it really feels like the graphic novels in play. And of course, Kids on Bikes is meant for that. But how did you kind of like approach that, working with the source material and thinking about game mechanics and like putting those things back and forth like in your head and even through playtesting and stuff like that, to make it really feel like you're playing the graphic novels? Because I think you do feel that way when you're playing the game.
Really, the Kids on Bike system kind of lended itself well to that, since it's already dealing with, you're playing kids who are in over their heads sometimes, and the idea that you're living in a place where you can get from one side of town to the other on your bike. And that kind of lended itself well to the whole idea of like the Junior Braves graphic novels, where it's like they coming back home and you can get from one side of the town to the other pretty easily. There's going to be some places that are maybe a little bit harder to reach, but for the most part, they're on foot. And so it's reasonable to say it's like, okay, small town. But yeah, I mean, it just kind of fit just about right for that. Mechanically though, like there was a few things I had to tweak just from the perspective of like say difficulties and challenges, because the original was like you had this like big chart. It's like, here's all these kind of benchmarks, and I'm like, well, that works for some things. With this, I kind of want to have it be a little more where the game master kind of feel like they understand how these difficulties are coming about, like why it's this hard, and just kind of coming up with like here's the aspects that are making this difficult, and seeing how that translates to numbers.
What was the initial response to like the ideas that you were putting out? I mean, obviously people were pretty excited about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, like on Greg and Mike Tanner's side, like they were very excited to see what was going on.
Of course, yeah.
On the side of the writers of Kids on Bikes, they kind of like look at it, go like, okay, this is an interesting take, and here's some things we would do instead. And so I kind of took that and worked with it. I was kind of happy they took my wording for lucky breaks and applied that to future versions of their games.
Yeah.
Like I was totally tickled when I was watching Dimension 20's Magic and Misfits and hearing Abria Iyengar say like, oh, that's a lucky break. I'm like, wait, what?
That is cool, man. That must be a thrill. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, hey. And then there was a lot of talking with Greg, particularly about like other aspects of the Junior Braves story and world. See, like, okay, what can I fit in here that would expand this a little bit? And then that in turn, apparently, like also kind of affecting some of the ideas that they were writing. So
that's cool. It is interesting because I think one of the strengths of the game to me is like it captures the feel of Junior Braves, but there is enough of a variety. Like I was thinking about the Trolls of Bridgetown. Actually, I'm going to be running this game. What's interesting is like, there aren't trolls in the graphic novel, but reading the way you've kind of put it together, it's like a pathway they could have taken. It feels like totally right, even though it's not the way that they've continued the story.
Yeah, well, I think that was probably the only like really original thing I kind of added to the whole thing, where it's like I was thinking, and this is the reason why I like hack games so often, is because I go like, oh, what kind of other stories can we tell? What if this happens? What if that happens? And so I was like, well, why not let people make their own versions of the apocalypse? So I have all this thing about like, here's some ideas, here's some different touchstones to take into consideration. What if it's aliens attacking? What if it's the robot revolution? What if it's, mystic creatures are real and have decided to conquer the world? And the whole designing your own small town based on just some random roles and drawing out a map to make sure that everybody kind of feels like they know where they are.
Look, I'm not going to keep you for much longer, but I want to ask you just a couple more questions. What is the response? What's the response to the game been like?
Muted.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
No, I mean, again, I didn't really go into it with like any high hopes of like, I'm going to be the next RPG superstar. I'm just like, it's out there. Cool. I actually used pretty much all of my royalties from Junior Braves to do a contest this year. So my store has something called Fresh Games, where people prototype their own games and test them out and work on them to make them publishable, possibly. And so I ran a thing called the Gremlin Game Design Contest, where I said, like, here's these random little bags of just components that I've scavenged from dozens of different board games. Make something out of it. And so they gave them a month and a half. They brought in their game designs, and I gave out pretty much my entire royalties plus a little bit more as prizes for them.
How cool. Like, you use the money that you got for making a game to help other people make games.
This is the end.
And that was pieces of my interview with Michael Wight, a.k.a. GremlinLegions, and he was awesome. That story, God, what a great story. I loved hearing everything about the game, but that great story there at the end.
It was actually really lovely to hear about what he did with the money, because, I mean, that's really someone who loves community and loves gaming, and that's just something you don't really hear about that often. So kudos to him for doing that.
As a journalist that I, sort of have become, writing for the paper and stuff like that, I've thought this is something that's interesting that I experienced. Is it, so I got into writing because I was an artist in Savannah, in town, and that led to the radio show, and then I got into writing for the paper, right? And so, like, I ended up starting to, like, connect with all of these artists and realizing how amazing so many of these people were. And God, I found it to be, like, really inspiring learning that about artists and just, like, talking to him. And I mean, I guess I felt this way too when we talked to Ben Sperduto and Jeremy Childrey as well. But I really was feeling that, like, I don't know, it was very inspiring to me. Like, if you're gonna do something that you love and you believe in so strongly that you're gonna do that, like, you're just giving your money away, like, just because you think it's something good to do for the world. It's nice. Like, people, I don't know, like, it's inspiring. It's inspiring to see people do that with, like, somebody do that with gaming. I mean, I wouldn't even really think of it as, like, a vehicle for that kind of activism, right?
He built the bus and drove it. If it's a vehicle, he just got in there and drove it.
Well, like, we've talked with Kat Valentine. No, we didn't, so I'm just moving on. We've spoken to Kat Valentine of Ghost Table Games, for example, and she, they do the charity streams and try to earn money for various organizations, the VFW, for example. We've talked about that before. But it's neat to see people doing that kind of thing, just as sort of an end note to this interview and this sort of topic. And we sort of conclude this episode. I just think that it's interesting just when you start kind of going behind the curtains to see what is happening in the game design and development community with people, like who the people are.
Yeah.
Rather than it just being like, well, here's this book and it's like something. Like, then you like meet these people and I don't know, they can just be inspiring as people. It's interesting. Anyway.
You're so excited. I love it.
You're making me feel weird because I'm excited.
No.
All right, well, should we get out of here?
Yeah. Where are we gonna go?
Well, I mean, turn off.
Because we have a kid sleeping, we gotta kind of stay around. Do you want to go get coffee though? We could just leave him here. I'm sure it'll be fine.
I'm sure it's fine.
Rabbit's here. He's great at watching.
He's 3.5 years old. I mean, we've already proven. I mean, we just let Odin start being an outdoor cat. I'm sure we could just let.
God, I'm so frustrated about that. Last story.
Yeah.
I don't agree with outdoor cats.
I don't have a problem with them, but anyway.
Now have an outdoor cat because our cat Odin is so focused on escaping, whether it's running through a door that the toddler leaves open, a door that just is partially open, finding a hole in our old patio screen, which then Rob replaced with heavy duty super pet screen, and very heavy duty staples, and our cat dug his way out of them. So we have now given up because, I put a tile on his collar and that helped me find him a couple of times, but the collar pops off and he's an outdoor cat now.
But he keeps coming back. At least he keeps coming back.
Yeah. So that's my story for this week. We now have an outdoor cat. Man, he's gonna bring like a mouse inside the house. I guess I don't care about mice. If it's a rat, roof rats are a problem here in Savannah. So
I used to have an outdoor cat,
Buttons.
Buttons, and Buttons would bring us stuff, but never inside. Buttons she would always leave stuff like on the front step.
We've found a lot of lizard bodies in the house.
Yeah, but he could have found those lizards in the house or on the patio.
Well, yeah, but instead of leaving them on the patio, he brought them in for our son to be like, "What's that?"
That's called the cycle of life.
Anyway.
So if you out there teach your children the cycle of life through dead animals that your other animals bring into your house, email us at rpgsandbabymakes3@gmail.com.
Yeah.
But also, in all seriousness, please, support this game. Like and subscribe to this video, of course, and our channel here, but also support this game. Oni Press is where you can find the graphic novels, and there's also links to the games there. Really easy to find, and these guys do lots of cons and stuff like that, so you can occasionally find them. They're all up in the Pacific Northwest, so most likely to find them out there. It is
so gorgeous up there.
Yeah.
Urgh.
Yeah,
I'm so jealous.
Yeah. All right, anyway, let's get out of here.
Yep.
All right, bye.
Take care, y'all.
Wait a second.
Bye.
Was that it? Is that how we end the show?
I don't know.
Tune in next
Definitely
time.
not this chaotic usually.
Good night.